Hello, welcome to Swatch's live stream number 79. We're going to be taking a look at the art challenge submissions. This week we're again joined by Anna. Hey, how's it going, Anna?
Hi everyone, how are you?
Well, looks like we already have some people in the chat. Christina, Adriel, Hobbit, good to see everybody. We had 11 concepts, I think. We're just missing one. So that was a good turnout for the, I don't know, submissions numbers. So, if you're new here, I am Clint Kierley. I'm an illustrator and art educator, and we have a community art challenge that we've put out. This month, it's a 4-week challenge for the 1 month section. It has been a double option. They can choose to either do an image based on springtime, it's a character that sort of embodies spring, or they can choose Dragon's Den, which is a character, a human character facing a dragon in the dragon's domain. And it could be any kind of scenario. Maybe he's talking to the dragon, maybe he's fighting the dragon. It's up to the artist to show that. Also, with the spring challenge, they could choose either a character in a scene or just a character. And that character could be humanoid, it could be mythological, whatever helps evoke that sense for them. So we had 12 tickets for sale to join the challenge, and we sold those. We have 11 entries that were submitted. So we'll be stepping through that and trying to give as much positive, constructive feedback as possible for the artists. And of course, if you are joining in the chat live, then feel free to put in your comments and questions in the chat. Do put at swatches in the comment. If you're directing it to me, it will flag it in yellow. It's much easier to see that way. I'll also be keeping an eye on the chat and trying to pass along any relevant comments or questions as well. Okay, well, we've got a couple of other announcements to run through. Let me switch over to the other screen. OBS. There we go. So, okay, there is a sale going on with the consults. If you want to schedule a one-on-one video consultation with me, we can talk about your art, problem solve any particular pieces that you're working on right now. We could go over your portfolio, about trying to get jobs, sort of career-wise, or maybe your general art education. You can go to art-mentor.com, and for the next 2 weeks, you can get $20 off a video consult with me. I am also streaming on Twitch from 10 to noon, Monday through Thursday, Central Standard Time. So you can go to twitch.tv/swatchesart. It is not as educational. It's more about me just doing some of my own drawing and studies. But you're welcome to come out there and hang out with me, toss me some questions, we'll just talk shop. Next week, we'll be doing more portfolio reviews. So if you haven't already submitted your portfolio on the Swatches group, just go to swatches.group, go to the post that is relevant to that, and leave a link to your portfolio. All right, any thoughts, Anna? Any other announcements or comments that we should be covering before we jump into it?
I think you pretty much told us everything that is very important right now. So
Okay.
let's jump into it.
All right, so you know what? We always go alphabetically. Maybe we'll go backwards this time. Maybe we'll go the other way. We'll start with Tyler Vale. All right. Tyler leaves a couple comments saying, I'm not sure how to make this feel like it's in a cave more. I feel like it's missing something, but not sure what. Okay, now I made a couple of little notes here of a couple of things to talk about, but let's start with your comments, Anna. What was your impressions of Tyler's piece? Maybe where would you see it being taken, or how to address some of the issues he's brought up?
Yeah, so the first is really, really nice concept. He has three really well done concepts on top. When you
Mm-hmm.
have a look at the left upper corner, he did amazing compositions for this time, and I think you could go with each of those. They are all really well done. I think just little tiny nitpicks here. For example, the person has not, yeah, is not that refined yet. Maybe give him a shield or something, like was prepared to meet a dragon, or yeah. Also, the fire that is coming out of the dragon's mouth could be a little bit more centered within the mouth, and the jaw is a little bit bound from the dragon, which makes it look a little bit like made out of gum. For the background, well, adding maybe a cave entrance in the background that we can see. Yeah, have a little bit more on the edges of the painting, some rocks that are coming into our, yeah, yeah, into the vision.
Mm-hmm.
These are my first ideas that I have on this one.
Yeah, a lot of straightforward ones. I was with you. Immediately caught me like, this doesn't look like a warrior. It just seems like a dude that's just somehow got lost. There's no armor or anything. Also, doesn't look like he's coming there to give the dragon anything. So, in your earlier ones, you actually had some really nice concepts. These were all kind of interesting as well. Any of these could work. But at least in these, it looked like he was battling, that he had a wizard staff or a sword or something. So we definitely want to go back to that. And you were playing around with different color schemes with the fire and stuff, and that's cool. And with her, it does look like it's kind of coming out of the top of his mouth rather than towards his throat, which is, I guess, what I would expect. Unless you want to go with the, I guess I want to say scientifically accurate dragon. But they have like the glands on the inside of their mouth, and when the two chemicals mix, it becomes fire. And so it would be coming from a particular spot in the mouth like that. The jaw is a little wobbly. You got to make sure that the bottom jaw matches up with that top, because they do have to fit together. So they can't be too different. And right now it looks like it's kind of bending there towards the middle. So if you're going to go with this scene in general, I would think to maybe turn these elements a little bit more to the camera. Right now, there's so much of the scene that doesn't have to do with what the scene is really about, which is right there. And this area out here just isn't being utilized much. We can get more out of it with the background. But we could honestly just get him a little bigger. All we could do is just have the head be turning, right? So that this guy is now this big. He's a little closer to us. Then the dragon's head isn't going at this angle. It's going more at this angle, just being aimed more to us in this case, instead of being like this. Then that allows us to get the main guy down here bigger in the scene without necessarily having to move the camera around a lot. You're just reposing the head and then simply just grabbing the guy and making him larger. It's just a simple transform going on there. For the background, honestly, what I would consider is you put this one up here as kind of like your cave. Okay, cool. We'll just grab this, copy it, paste it. Now this is a direction, right? I'm not saying this is the answer. I'm saying this is a direction. So you can get this, make this bigger. This is sort of to test out whether you like this approach or not, whether this starts getting your scene in the direction that you want to go. It's like, okay, cool. We'll put there like that. I'm gonna make a mask over it. Put put a mask over it. I'm going to inverse the mask so that everything that's black is invisible. Now I can paint in white, then that will show through. So that means that I was like, okay, well, I want to just play around with the background. What would it look like if I had a background like that in this scene? All right, well, I could just take 2 minutes here and paint it in. And this could serve to tell me whether or not I like this sort of background. And then what sort of atmosphere this creates. I'm sort of guessing what's going on back there. It gets really fuzzy and dark. So I'm going to say something like that. But automatically, just with that much, you see how much that silhouette really reads well? We can get a lot of that silhouette. Same sort of thing that you see back here. That atmosphere and that lighter background really helps to sell the silhouette of that darker creature. And that's sort of the approach that you want to use with yours. Look at how you can use the spikes and stuff in order to create a nice series of shapes there. So that right there could give you a scene that's really close. But you could use you could find any kind of reference image or photos of caves, and there's probably photo packs of caves that you could go buy. And maybe you don't want to use a photo as a background, that's fine. But you can kind of throw it in there to see if the colors are working and what the values are working. And you can say, okay, well, I sort of like that, but I don't like the angled, or I don't like it that bright or that dark. Okay, but it gives you something to go with. Additionally, I'm thinking kind of along the lines with what you were saying, Anna. We need rocks or piles of gold or something in the foreground to add that extra layer. This is a beautiful image. I'm not sure what it's from. It's really, really well done. But they did that here as well, too. You see this pile of gold and like a book and some, gems and stuff down there in the foreground. And we have that over here, too. Another pile right there in the foreground. And this would be really nice to have in yours as well. To have a foreground element that's all setting in the shadow so that you have another layer of another visual layer to the image before you get to the fire and stuff. Then, of course, we need to be indicating a little bounce light from the fire onto the creature. And if we have a background that's this light, you probably want to do the same sort of thing as we have up here, which is a bit more ambient light just to fill in some of those shadows so everything isn't just one tone. Now, make sure when you're looking at this, like there is basically a light and dark within the shadow. It sort of separates into just two tones, and that's fine. It's all that you need to really start telling some of the things that's going on. Like, I just want to come up here, then I want to use one tone that's slightly lighter to sort of bring out where those muscles are. Then maybe, what some of this is going on here. And, same thing like across the wing. But maybe the wing is catching a bit of that light. Maybe it's actually getting brighter across there. Or you could have it catching more of the light, doing this sort of thing, right? If you want to try to bring in a bit more color and play into that effect more. So, lots of good places to go from here. And that right there is just a really fast way of sort of throwing together a direction to see if you like it or not. Then you can be as painterly with it as you want, and you can include more of the light from that scene, or you could diminish it. So, all right. Any final thoughts on this one, Anna? We're keeping to a tighter time frame on this stream than we normally do. I have some engagements after the stream, so I can't run real long.
Yeah, was perfect 10 minutes.
Excellent.
Excellent.
That will do it. She's trying to keep me. I have a tendency to go long, so trying to go a little fast. Okay, next up is Travis Earls. Okay. Let me move that back out of my way. All right, do you want to go first on this one?
Yeah. So, I had the very first impression when I looked at that guy that Travis painted for us. His body language tells me pretty much, oh, holy shit, I'm gonna die.
Yeah.
He's about to drop his sword and run. This guy is frightened of what he's going to face. And I'm not sure whether you were going for that, because the reference you took, the photos, which is a really great thing that you took, it looks like you did your own reference photographs there, have a completely different body language. At least tiny changes can already give so much difference in the character. And maybe you could even, with a little bit more hunching forward, even push this further than you did in your reference. So this was my very first impression. And the second thing is, I'm not quite sure the way of painting you used for the dragon. It looks a little bit like cut out, I don't know, effects, textures. I would not do so much in a sketch for now and not bother so much with crazy lights and crazy textures or something. Get the gist of it right, and we are at this stage now, and spend more time on the foundation of the painting before getting into the details.
I'm with, again, Anna and I, we both agree on a lot of the initial feelings here. The pose is one of more resonation. Like, he doesn't have his shield up, he doesn't have his sword up, his feet are completely planted, he's completely straight onto the dragon. This is not the pose of a warrior who has any inclination he's about to fight this thing. I really think we need to go back more to this guy and look at his body language, look at the gesture of what's going on here, look at the difference. Also go look at other images of heroes in pose. We probably want to turn it just a little bit so his arm is breaking that silhouette shape. But if you just look at it and move his arm over a little bit, then you're thinking about the volumes here. He is doing this. He is leaning forwards. And that's good, because he's readying. His legs are doing this, right? And he's bringing that shield up. Or maybe he could even have that shield there in front of him like that. And the sword can be down, that's fine. Or you could have it up this way. All right, this is a more readied pose to go attack. So that's definitely something that we want to look at. And yeah, quite a bit of work was done with the lighting, and maybe that's the thing that you were the most concerned whether you could pull off or not. But a lot of the other elements were really not handled as much. There's also a lot of work went into this. You've got all kinds of little details and runes and straps and doodads all over this dude. In the same time, we still don't know exactly how we're handling a lot of the values and the colors. So let's leave the details of the minor character design, gadgets to be finished later. And we need to spend more time up on these guys, figuring out this stuff. These make me feel like you don't really know how to handle value studies, how to get the most out of that process and what that process is for. I don't have time right now to go into how to do it. We've got 10 minutes for your thing. But that would be part of your homework, if I can assign you homework over the next week, is go find videos, go look at examples and articles and stuff, posts about doing really excellent value studies, and look at what people do and how they approach it when they're doing that. As far as the overall image to really help punch it up more, let's see, I don't have anything on that layer. No, okay. I think the lighting effect is really cool. The purple dragon, yeah, I like it. And you can do one of kind of two different ways, and you have both of them covered in your examples. One is that that color is so intense that it is literally making everything else in the scene monochromatic from that light effect. Or on the other scene, you have it this way, which is the light is purple, but it's not so purple that everything is violently purple, because there is other light in the scene that it's competing against. So it's a little more balanced in its light and its color. I don't know which one you want to go with, but I do feel like we need to get a better handle on some of the values, because this scene is really broken up with the value scheme, where you have straight blacks on almost everything, you have straight whites, you have completely pure colors. We need to be a little more nuanced with it. So if I could just make a few changes, one of the things I would really say is we need to brighten that sky up. We need to take an idea from this, which is it's okay for the dragon to be silhouetted and darker than the background. And maybe not in this area, but over here, where it gets further away from the body, you don't have that glowing part from the dragon out here. Now this part can have kind of that dull grayish tone to it, and then it actually becomes darker. And this is a technique or a visual approach that you see a lot of professionals using, which is they let things show up lighter in one spot, and then it gradates later to where it then is showing up because it's darker. They use the lit versus the shadowed version of it, and it makes a scene a lot more dynamic that way. So I'm looking down here and kind of, this is a really good reference for you. You don't necessarily need to copy the exact same values and everything. Same thing for this back heel. This back heel is completely black, and a camera isn't that good at it. A camera is going to just register it as black, but we're not cameras. We're illustrators, so we can take a little liberty with it and try to increase the atmospherics there. It's also just not a great shape for a heel, so we're going to get rid of most of that. So if we can put that back there, then you can get the idea that this light is actually bright enough that the top part of this thing is kind of thrown into shadow. So you get this wonderful, again, silhouette of shapes along the top there. Yeah, that castle isn't really adding much to it. And it follows kind of in a weird pattern right along this edge of the dragon. The mountain like hugs the shape, so that's really a good idea. Again, like this part can be going off into more silhouette, while the background stays lighter. And we can still have more fill light on him, and he can be, we can use the kind of the split color of things on this side lit by his good blue light, and things on this side lit by the evil lich purple light. You know, so you've got the dichotomy of the two going on there. So yeah, definitely do some gesture studies, work out the pose, try to get a lot more action out of that. Also look at maybe having some of the magic effect of the dragon sort of spilling out. Right. Having some little smoky bits. Then this will allow you to have some softer shapes as well. These down here, they can even be brighter, right? They can be doing this sort of thing. Yeah. Okay. Final thoughts? Wrap up. Any thoughts there, Anna?
Yeah, I think it's a really good idea to have these opposing lighting situations with having maybe a coolish light or a
Mm-hmm.
warm light in his bag and the opposite one for cool in the dragon. This is a really good idea. Looking forward to how you change this one.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about really the dragon design or anything, but I think it's reading really well. I like its pose, the way that it's swooping back towards him. It's really nice. The angle of the head is nice. The expression that you've actually got from the skull alone is good. So you're hitting a lot of good marks on that on fairly difficult things to do. So we just need to go back and make sure that we don't run past the importance of the value scheme and doing a little study on that and doing some studies with the color to figure out how you're going to handle that as well. And I'm also going to suggest on that piece, go take a look at work by Chris Rahn, Rahn, and he does a lot of that split lighting sort of thing where the thing in the foreground is one color tone and the thing in the background is a different color tone. So make sure you look at his stuff and see how he handles some of those same things, as well as how he gets diminishing distance in dark scenes. Yeah. All right, this one is by Nicholas. He has a couple of comments here. Hey, I had a hard time on the value and light studies as my original lighting idea was an integral part of the image's composition. I did not include them as I worked much better and I really did not like the other ones. Some inputs on other lighting ideas that could help the scene read better would be greatly appreciated though. Thanks a lot for the feedback. Okay. Cool scene. I like it. This is just one of those sorts of scenes I personally just like. I think it looks cool and good impression. I think you had a good impression of this one as well. Just generally, what stood out to you that you liked, or what would you want to see refined there, Anna?
Well, at first I must really disagree with you, Clint. I don't like it. I love it. It is amazing. It is a very good composition. The tilt of the dragon's head is so perfectly, it's just character. This dragon has a character, and he conveyed this really, really well. And he has very great choice of colors and values as well. And I think for different lighting options, to be honest, I didn't think about any different ones because I think the one he chose was pretty nice already. So it shows a little bit of the dragon. It has the characters lit very well. Maybe go a little bit more with some shadows around the objects. Maybe the light could be the main light on the person, the character in front is bright one. It looks a bit ghosty, but I think she will just be dressed in white. Maybe more from the side, the left side, for example. It adds a little bit more, how to say, a little bit more dynamic, and it's a little bit more interesting rather than having everything lit in the same way. So more changes of light in the foreground, but in the background, I think this bounce light coming from the stairs that is hitting his face is already executed really well.
Yeah, I would really not change anything on the dragon other than just refining it, just cleaning it up, right? Because you've locked in everything right now. The amount of bounce light that he's getting is feeling really well, that it seems believable, and it also hits that right level of it's not immediately recognizable, and then it's that sort of second take, and then you notice it there. A couple of directions here that you could consider going, and it's more a matter of personal preference because it's not wrong or right. It's just kind of what you have, that you want to take this piece to. Most of the scenes I'm telling people pull up to the action, pull up to the action. Fill the frame with the subject. With this particular scene, I'm actually comfortable saying you could consider actually pulling out a little bit. Just giving me a little more scene. Like, is this a temple? Is this a cave? A slot canyon of some kind? I'm not really sure what's going on. And I'd almost appreciate a little more room so that I can kind of have the setting there. And if you do that, then I would consider being able to build some more layers to the image. You actually have some really nice layers there on that second composition. And then actually handling the lighting where maybe the lighting is being broken up. And then this is also kind of another idea is that we add a second plane in between like this foreground character and the dragon. So like the foreground character would be a character that's right here on these steps. And then we have another series of steps beyond them. Then the dragon's back there. But of course the dragon looks even bigger because you've added an entire plane in between the two of them. And so I sort of was thinking about that, like if it had, and again, this might not be what you want at all. This is super simple, and it works because it's simple. But if you wanted to think about, like, if the steps sort of went up, then it makes the dragon feel bigger, and then you could have, like, I don't know, some sort of architecture pieces that kind of go off into the background or anything. But that's really if you make the scene wider. You don't really need that in the scene as it is. Lighting, I'm sort of a fan of this, which is just the slit of light coming through, and that we could do that sort of thing with yours. Let's see, let's grab a layer here. I'm gonna grab a darken layer and grab that sort of shadow tone. And if we have a bit more of an angle on the light and not so much of just a top down, then we could have like a nice sort of cast shadow being thrown by some of these guys, which can be cool. And then we could also have a cast shadow where basically she's in the light, right? Like we have down here. And you could do, let's see, do like a linear dodge at like half. So things in this light band are really light. Then everything else in the shadow is getting even more shadowed. And so the light sort of comes up there and it hits that stuff, right? And then sort of doing this. Then this guy might be all lit up as well. Yeah. And they're sort of underlit by the bounce like the dragon. And that's just like if you want to get like a little fancier and have the light, or you can angle it more like a triangle if you want it sort of directed up the steps. Or if you wanted to have multiple streaks of like, you know, shadow here and shadow here, but yet there's like light band going across there as well, of some sort of pattern. Yeah. I'm not sure what you're doing with this. I assume that you have some plan of what the wispiness is. If it's flowing fabric, like some sort of gossamer fabric behind her, that could be really cool. Otherwise, I don't really see it as being like smoke. And that's the other thing. We'll just need to make sure that this is like some sort of nice bounce light coming up. Otherwise, it's just hazy. I assume that's part of your just painting process, that you just kind of quickly put in like a bounce light haze sort of thing going across there. And there's a couple of ways to handle the bright light. Yours is going a lot more for the color, and that can definitely work. You can also punch it up even more like you have on this one over here, which is anything in the light is super bright and anything in the shadow is really warm and quite dark. If it's being reflected from something in the light directly on it, like this part down here, it's in the medium tone and it's really warm, but nothing back there is, close enough to be getting any real bounce light, so it's super dark. So you could experiment with that as well, like punching the light up even brighter. The sides here, another thing was you had this inspiration piece down here where they incorporated some architecture and stuff into the stonework, and that's really cool. And you had the hieroglyphics that had details in those stones. And I'm thinking it might be nice to do a similar sort of thing with the stones up here. If you had some architecture built into them or some gold lines that were, engraved into it. Or if we're looking at the pattern of the steps and saying that maybe there is, like a sides here so that, there's the main walking area, then there's the flat areas off to the sides, little plateaus, and then there's larger, flatter areas on some of these. So like all of that levels out and all that levels out, just to keep it from being a completely straight all the way across the whole image sort of thing. And then also feeling like if you just, and you probably would later, but add in little cracks and make it look like this has been worn down over centuries. And we're just trying to make the steps look like they've been stepped on by the dragon, and bits of it have broken off, and you got that wear going on.
Time is up.
Okay, well, really cool piece, and even toss it out onto the Swatches group. Any of you guys can toss these things out on the Swatches group to get more feedback from others, or maybe others have some really good references dealing with what the topics are that you're going with. All right, Jonathan Monroe. Okay. Jonathan says, I'm hoping you're doing voices again when reading out this out. With a heavy load, I rolled a nat 1 for a time management check. I was only able to start these sketches yesterday. Apparently he's a smoker, so I didn't get as far as I'd like. I'm going for a card art approach with this, and have mostly referenced Legend of the Cryptid's work. I really do backgrounds and have no idea how to get that level of detail. Well, yeah, Legend of the Cryptid's art. Beautiful work. I like looking at it. I don't like doing that kind of work because it is so detailed. But if that's what you're going for, more power to you. All right. Anna and I both had a similar impression of the concept here, which is her pose is not what I'd really expect from this character. It's a pose that, on its own, without any facial expressions or anything, is a pose of being startled. You put both of your arms out to your sides because you feel very unsafe, and you're trying to balance yourself. You're trying to, or is sort of thing, like, I feel like she just stepped between two people and are like, now calm down, guys. Just chill. That's what you do with your hands when you're doing that. Where the pose on your upper concepts don't have that feeling. That's more of the, Disney princess, is about to have a little pretty bird, a light on her finger. And that works, I think, better. So we need to think about that pose. Like, I think it's mainly just maybe even reposing one arm in one hand, and the rest of it would probably work. Can we have one hand reaching out to grab something? Can the front hand be picking a flower? Can her head be down and she's picking up a flower? Can there be a bird flying to her? I don't know what the answer is. It's your image. You take it where you want. But something does have to be done with that so that the body language is expressing the same thing that the face and the rest of the environment is. Beyond that, what was one of your other observations, Anna?
Yeah, one more thing is basically because I think it's because he said he is going for the Legend of the Cryptids look, but as I can recall, most of them are vertical, aren't they? These cards or these paintings, at least. They have a vertical cropping, and this one has a horizontal one. And I felt like the first expression when I was opening this file, I was like, oh, it's cropped. I need to scroll down or something to see the rest. So I was expecting it to be, yeah, for the legs to be visible and things like that. So for me, the pose looks more like something that would be good for a vertical approach, whereas the first one he did, that you also said is working a little bit better, the Disney princess look kind of thing there. I don't have that much the problem with it being horizontal. But what do you think? Would for that one also be a vertical approach more fitting, or what do you think?
I think vertical can definitely work. It's sort of up to Jonathan because he's wanting it to be card art. Now, if he's wanting it to be like a magic card art, this is about the right ratio. It might even be the exact ratio. But yeah, Legend of the Cryptids is traditionally a vertical image. So he could really do whatever he wants. Yeah, you might want to pull out just a little bit, give the viewer a little bit more room. But so other things to consider is okay. The hands. I just drew a little thing here. So if you're trying to get more of a Legend of the Cryptids sort of feel, one of the things that they do a lot is having little floaty elements. Lots of fabric that drapes around. A lot of hair, anti-gravity hair. So much anti-gravity hair with Legend of the Cryptids. When you're painting the hair, just think that they're underwater. Because it allows you to just make the hair do whatever you want it to do without regard to what it would actually do. So you want to create a lot of flowing, light, kind of ethereal motions with as much stuff as you can. So like the hair, instead of doing just that, we need another band that's out here just flying around up there like this, right? And that's if you're wanting to try to get that same sort of feeling. That's part of it. Make sure, of course, that you're not keeping it all one band. You've got to have this in groups, right? So that's coming out. Also think about if you can get some sort of soft fabric or feathers or something along that lines and to add extra draping. Maybe she has extra fabric that, like that. It hangs off of her... It goes around, from the shoulders and comes around and hangs back here. Then that way you've got this more loopy, soft sort of feeling going on there. Or maybe there's constantly petals falling out of her hair from the flowers that literally just grow out of the hair. And so you got these little soft bits constantly sort of floating around her. That could be an element as well. And if you're talking about like the background and handling it, one of the things that they do with Legend of the Cryptids, I don't know if you work this way, same sort of thing that we did with the other dragon image, which is using a photo background in order to generate a direction that you want to go, whether you end up using it or not. It can give you the colors, the values, the lighting direction, and then you change it depending on what you want in your scene. Now, like this image up here, that was a photo background. There's actually several elements of photos going on here, if I'm not greatly mistaken. And they have put them in there and then modified them so that they match the colors, the values, and the direction of the image. But that's something else you could do. So like I just grabbed a photo and I threw in that. So it's, obviously that's not the right perspective or anything, but you can put one in there like that and then be like, okay, well, that's not bad, but what I'm looking for is maybe something that's a little more diffused. Okay, well, I can come in here and I can add in a linear dodge to it, right? I can do a clipping mask to it, and then I can soften out parts of it. But then you still have that set of colors, right? And you can still modify that in order to try to get something that you like out of it. But that's sort of a Legend of Cryptid's approach. That's a common thing that they do in a lot of their images. Do make sure that if you're having any of the elements of the photo left, you probably want to go up and do like a filter blur, like a smart blur, to minimize the visual noise and detail so that it will mesh into your actual painting better. Otherwise, you have to have an absurd amount of visual detail to match in with the detail of the photo. Yeah. Trying to think what else. Oh yeah, I wasn't sure what you were doing with the lighting. Like you did some of these really nice value studies, and then on this one, I don't think you went with any of them. These were all very straightforward lighting studies, like, oh, she's darker than the background. Oh, she's lighter than the background. You kind of got a half and half thing, and then here it's just like everything's light, except for the trees.
Yeah, it might be because it did not show us yet. I did the same, to be honest, exactly the same. I put one with neither of them, just so that the sketch is better visible. So maybe he did the same, with just that we see the lines better and that we can make out what is what.
Mm-hmm.
He put some values behind it. Because I did the same. That's what I think.
Yeah, just and that might be, he might have just thrown some in there to make it more legible, and then we'll go back and play with that more. So just make sure that's nailed before you start going in any kind of detail or even the colors. All right. Next up, going to be taking a look at Giles, I believe so you said. Okay, Giles. I don't know what's going on here, man. Anna and I were both sitting here looking at this before the stream. I can't really make this out. And so the takeaway here is that sometimes the thing to get out of a review is not an art technique. Sometimes the thing that needs to be learned isn't how to improve lighting. Sometimes the thing is outside of that. In this case, it is learning the importance of what a good concept is, like a concept submission, and what a concept submission is about. It is about conveying the concept. It doesn't need to be fancy. It doesn't need to be interpreted. It doesn't need to be anything other than being able to effectively convey the basic concept of the scene. And that's really, really important. So, like at this point, I feel like a lot of attention went into things that don't have any importance on fulfilling this stage of the image. You put a lot of work in like getting textures for the fire. You did like worked out individual folds in the clothes. You did blurring effects on it. That's not where we are right now. I'm going to suggest that you do. I'm going to suggest go pick up my painting process video if you're willing to spend $20. And know a good artist has a workflow that will take them from start to finish in a very ordered manner so that the idea is clear and developed in a way that you don't have to backtrack very much. The more that you backtrack, the more things get longer and more complicated. So on this, again, kind of thinking about it in terms of like an art director has to know what they're looking at. If they don't know what they're looking at, if they can't make it out, then the whole project's just dead in the water. And so here, like, I can make out that there is a character. I don't know if that character is jumping down on me, or that character is jumping up, or jumping down, or falling. I don't know whether...
Yeah, when you look at the reference, you get a little bit more of an idea. So his body is facing us, but he is like hunching backwards, and we can't see his head because it's facing the dragon that is flying in the den, probably. So yeah, it's a little bit unfortunate to choose that we can mostly see of the character, sorry for the word, the crotch, and the rest is basically bent away from us. So I think showing us the head would have helped much more to tell us his pose.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was now again a bit staring for longer, and in the value study number 2, you can make out things a little bit better, because I think that in the background is supposed to be the dragon, and on left and right is all his wings, these bright orange things.
Mm-hmm.
But it's unfortunate that he took that color for the wings because it looked like background in the middle of a volcano or something like that. And this is the problem. Really, he's going step by step and doing a sketch first and looking for the first read, and maybe post it in the Facebook group, ask the people, what do you think, how's the first read, do you understand what I did here? Because on the second composition he made, it's a little bit better. I can see immediately this long neck of the creature, and he's sitting on top and trying to stab it. I immediately understand it.
Mm-hmm.
But with this one, I really took now, before 10 minutes, we looked together at it, and now I kind of figured out, I think, what's happening here. But I'm still not knowing where this guy is jumping from, and whether the horizontal line is vertical or horizontal, or it's super confusing. That's the problem with this one.
And another note just to keep in mind on this is you don't have to, as they say, reinvent the wheel. Sometimes we artists, we want to come up with the new composition, this thing that no one's ever done before. We want to come up with an idea that no one's ever seen. We want to give them, and we just want to awe them with our sheer creativity, right? Usually that doesn't work out so well, because there is standard compositions for a reason. They work. And there is nothing wrong with a standard composition from a standard camera angle. because a standard image, well done, is a great image. Because it has all the strengths of a clear, structured composition with a really good rendering. And that can make for a great image. So in this case, I'm gonna tell you, Giles, forget color. All right, color is just complicating all of this. Right now, you need to focus on just black and white. You're just doing a value image now. And we need to work on a clear image where I know what's going on, that uses some sort of understandable structured composition. Find another image that does something similar and see what you can learn from that, and build from there. Be thinking more in terms of developing the forms of the stuff. All of this it's very 2D, like straight down on the dragon. So let's see about developing that. And even if you just do a line image, that's fine too. And that can be a really clear, easier way to make out what you're seeing. So, okay, next up we have Francois. Not sure the difference of how do you say that.
Francois, I don't know.
Francois?
Is he French?
That sounds
Francois.
more correct for someone
But
who
if he's English, I don't know.
It's probably Francois. Okay, I'll turn off that little thing there. Over here. Did you have a chance to take a look at this one? Or
Yes.
not? You did? Okay. So what was your impression of what he has here?
So, I really, really like the line art he did. It's probably taking him a lot of time. It's very nice and clean, and that was my very first impression of how nice these lines are, and how, even though there is so much detail, he had a good balance to make things stand out, like the character silhouette, for example, and you can still read it immediately. You know immediately what's going, even without values in the background. I also liked his value studies. All of these three could work. I can see working. I'm sorry, that's my dog in the background. Stop it! No toy now. All of these three are very, really interesting and having a nice look. And I could not choose one, so Clint, it's just I must give that one to you. The one thing that I thought, I'm a little bit sad that's changed is the way of his leg or arm on the left, because in his first initial sketch, when I saw this the first time on Facebook, I immediately had this impression of he's coming around the corner. It was just a movement, so he's there, and it's not completely like balanced, so it had a little bit more dynamic to it. And now he's haunching with both legs in nearly the same position above the character in the human character. And it took, for me, might be something personal, it took something out of what was a little bit more interesting to look at before. And also having maybe a little bit more of his lower body be visible. I think in the first sketches he had this. You can see it in the value studies, that you see his leg behind the main character. This is what I'm missing, because I'm wondering where is his lower body. It would be weird if it's completely covered by the upper body and the head. So I would have that the third leg at least, or both of them, depends on how he's going to change the composition.
Yeah, good read on this. Very understandable. And yeah, you put a lot of refining lines on some of these areas. Hopefully that was a good investment, because if you have to change very much, you're out of a decent amount of time. But the scene is working quite well. And I always have to wonder if having the face straight on is the right call. Because anything that's completely straight to the camera is inherently flattened. If you turn an object anywhere from completely straight, you have a better sense of the volume, and that makes it feel more 3D. That makes it feel like it's more real. Because when you have a completely straight thing that feels flat on an actual 2D image, it just heightens that flatness. People do it, and sometimes they get away with it, but it's due to the fact that they're doing other things well. Maybe the lighting's really nice, maybe the color's really nice, maybe the expression is good, but them being flat to the camera is rarely the thing that is actually benefiting the image. It's the thing that they're just having to overcome. The other thing is just the balance of the scene. Let me pick a color that's a little darker. Yeah. Where this light is going to be here, and so the light is probably just going to be catching up to him right around there. This is all pretty redundant. This top third is really not doing anything. I mean, you could crop all the way down to basically the dragon's eyes, and you haven't changed the scene any, and you haven't changed anything at all. So I would be considering actually just moving and getting rid of that and giving more in the bottom. Like if we put that up there, and then we had little Miss Investigator Tomb Raider down here. Again, we can make her a little bigger. We can move her closer to the camera. She's so small right now. And we can just set her a little closer. Right? And we're not losing anything because all that space isn't really doing anything for us. So we could do that. We could just put something like that, or you could even move her a bit closer to that. And then she's not even overlapping with the dude. You could even make her this big. I mean, for as much detail and how much we want to connect with the character, I don't know why we wouldn't have her filling more of the frame this way. How do you feel about that sort of composition change, Anna?
Yeah, this is a
I don't know why
very
this
good
keeps
idea.
moving. Okay.
I wouldn't have thought of that. That's why we love you, Clint. It's really tiny changes that can change so much for a painting, can do so much for it. Yeah, it's already better. I just saw in the comments these round thingies in the background are supposed to be dragon eggs. I don't read them as such because they're not an egg shape but a round. Do you think this is problematic, or could we add something to make it more look like dragon eggs, like a specific texture or cracks or something like that?
I wasn't sure what they were. I didn't know if they were just some sort of odd subterranean plant or whatever. If they were painted with a dragon skull on the outside, a la Game of Thrones, that would make them recognized by most people as a dragon egg. You could do the semi-translucent, lit from the inside sort of thing, and you can see part of the growing embryo of the dragon inside of there. That would work. I think that really comes down to the rendering of the object and how you're going to be doing it that way, and to sell that. Because otherwise, I'm not sure what it is. I'm just taking it as some weird place.
Yeah, I was too. It's also maybe because they are so different in size, and dragon eggs usually are at one specific size for, yeah.
Yeah, That's actually a good catch. Is that they are so varying in size. Like you got these little ones that just look like some sort of almost mushroom, and then you got these big ones. So I don't think I would necessarily read the little ones. Also, I guess you're used to seeing them kind of clumped in, like, oh, these are all the eggs in the nest, and they're protected. They're put into a group, and this isn't. This is like, oh, they're just kind of half covered, stuck away, different sizes, different places. Yeah, I didn't really take it that way. It's a cool design with the dragon. I like the layers of the different kinds of horns that it has, the different sort of ridges that it has, the long, sort of Asian style, I don't know, whiskers, you call them, coming off. That's neat. She seems like a fun character that is going to have a very short life expectancy, but, you know, she got to see something cool before she.
Well, that's good.
Yeah. Yeah, I really want to see like some sort of turn from it. The head being straight thing can work better when everything is absolutely perfectly centered and vertical. And then it becomes a compositional element. It becomes a graphic use of the subject. And that's more like why it works here, because it is right in the middle of the scene. It is perfectly vertical, being hit against a perfectly horizontal plane. And so you've got this going on. It works that way because of that. But when you start tilting the camera and you start making it a three-dimensional scene where everything in the image has depth, except for this one thing, it makes that thing feel extra flat. Yeah. So just think about that. You might be able to get away with it if you tilt the camera back and it's straight, and yeah, and it won't be as big of a deal. I'm hoping she has some sort of just stupid powerful mage magic, or like a dragon spray, like pepper spray, and you could just and then she'll be okay. But I don't know if she packed any or not. She looks pretty well packed. She might have some. Yeah. Yeah, with it, I was thinking about that arm thing. Maybe one of the things that, if you could even change the arm a little bit, instead of it coming up like that, like if it was just beginning to wrap around the side over here, and his arm is going down, kind of back behind it. But he's just beginning to creep it over the side as he's coming over, rather than, oh yeah, I'm just put my whole claw over top of this thing because I'm coming. It would give him a bit more of a sneaky feel. Yeah. And then I'm sort of with you. I hadn't thought about it until you mentioned it, but having that body go straight back, I don't think is as interesting as having the body kind of turning and going around, particularly one side or the other. I think that's probably cooler. Got a better flow to it. Yeah, she could just borrow Batman's shark repellent. Because in the DC comics, if you were to like rank the top 10 most powerful weapons in DC comics, the shark repellent is actually like number 3. It can repel almost everything except for like the divine entities.
Well, we're coming close to time cap. One last question from the one who painted it. Which of the value studies you think could be working best? Which one?
Oh, which of the value studies?
Yeah.
Let's take a look. It depends the mood you're going for. The top one is definitely more of a horror mood. I don't like, from the impression of the character and how lighthearted she seems, I don't get the impression that's what you're going for. What you might want to do, or you could go with like that top one if you added a secondary light, like there's some sort of soft fill light hitting the edges of parts of the dragon, so that you've got just a few bits of it kind of catching light over here, a few bits of stuff over here. Maybe one little glowing thing over there is catching some light. Then that would keep it from being super, super dark. The other thing is, if these are going to be luminescent, you don't need the flame as bright. If the eggs are going to be luminescent like this, and you can actually use them to brighten up more of the scene, which could be cool because you could have a difference of color between the flame and the egg things. This seems quite bright. I don't know why it would be that bright. I'd probably keep it from lighting up the top of him too much.
Okay, we must go to the next one, Clint.
Yeah.
Already.
This is also one I wouldn't get too. Of course, more spam calls. I don't know what the deal has been the last couple of days, but spam callers have just been on their game. Okay. I wouldn't get too tied up in how realistic is the lighting. Would it really be that bright? Don't worry about it. Do what looks good and works for the image in that case. All right, this one is by Ernst. And he says, the main idea is the dragon's being worshipped like a deity. I wanted to transmit something evil, but fantastic. Very, very like sword and sorcery style. I still miss something that you can give this mood, especially in the environment. So, Anna, if this was your piece and you were thinking you needed to make it more evil, like fantastically evil, what would you think about doing with this thing?
Well, I think what was my very first impression in this one was that the colors are so super saturated that it's again like in the last challenge with the little bit bonbon colors. I'm sorry, my dog is again having his toy. It's a little bit too saturated to be taken as something, I don't know, mysterious or something. I don't know. It can work, but having all the colors saturated, like the blue and the red, I just felt it's a little bit more childish looking from the colors when it comes to colors. And when you look at his references, and you look at the colors there, you will see that the colors there, they look maybe vibrant to you, but actually they're super desaturated, and there is barely a color that is as saturated as in his painting. So the first thing was the colors. The second thing was I felt like this dragon's anatomy is superhuman-like. I haven't looked up so many dragon paintings yet, but whether there are some looking like this, but I check on how others do the anatomy on the dragons. The third thing was also this super centered face that immediately grabbed my attention. Like it's completely looking straight at us and not at the person, and it's also then giving this flattening effect that we just talked about. And that it overall feels then a little bit stiff. These were my first impressions here. About the evilness, I think his face looks pretty evil, and the pose of the human reads quite well. Maybe I would change the legs. When you worship someone, usually you have one leg, one knee on the ground and the other not, but still kneeling. I don't know what it's called, this way of sitting in English, but I would probably change it to that one rather than having sitting on your feet.
Yes, good comments, good observations there. The general composition, the gist of the idea, the basic colors you're working with, these things are all working. So, like I've said before, it's kind of like the uh, the recipe is working. Like you have the right ingredient list, but you don't have them in the right proportions yet. So we need to play around with what you have and get a better proportion out of it. So let's talk about actually the proportions of the dragon to begin with, because yeah, the anatomy of the dragon is running very humanoid right now. And maybe that's what you're going for. Maybe you're going for a much more humanoid one. But I don't know. It's easy for it to look like you just didn't draw a dragon well, rather than it looks like some more humanoid. I was like almost like demon rather than a dragon. I guess that's true. I guess it's reading actually a bit more like just a big demon rather than a dragon. In order to make some of the changes to make it more dragon-ish, one of the things would be the neck. Dragons traditionally are depicted with much longer necks. This guy has a human-length neck. I mean, look at your references over here. Look how the neck works. It's more like a, the end of it's more like a snake, and even some of the really beefy dragons have at least a neck kind of like a horse. So depending on the type of dragon you're wanting to do, you can do that. But what you're going to be looking at is having that neck coming around and then having his head turning to look at this guy some. All right, kind of like in this case, that's kind of like a horse face there. This is also a reason why this level of detail in a concept might be a little high. Because, again, I would be saying we probably need to change the face because it's too flat. We want to get the 3D form. We want to get the angles of the face. But the general expression, the colors, the way that it's lit, that all works. Let's just see about adjusting it. Even if you just turn the face like that much, just any amount, so that all of a sudden it's this, is going to give it a better feel and depth to it. Other things with the dragon, you have the back legs basically being human legs, but that's not what the back legs are. They're animal. As I'm about to say it, I completely lose the word. But the way that the back legs work in an animal, that you have the joint there and it comes back, and then you have essentially the long foot that comes, and then you have the claws and stuff. Right now, we just have the regular thigh, shin, and then the feet. But it's like a human in that you have the hips to here, you have the knee, but then what we have as the heel is actually another joint. Then it gets from the heel to the front of the foot, and then you have the claws and stuff coming off from there. So make sure that we're looking at some images of lizards, even base it on the skeleton of a deer. I mean, they all have that same sort of, again, I cannot remember the word of what that pattern of anatomy for the leg is. And same thing with the arms. Like, these look like human arms. We need to take a look at what more of the traditional dragon arm is, and maybe change the proportions so that, you've got this, and then that forearm, like on this one, this forearm is exceptionally long. And instead of having fingers, we have claws, right? We have the long joints ending on the big claws. And the joints are very visible. They're heightened from what you'd have with humans. Digigrade legs. Yes, digigrade. That was not coming to me as the way that the animal hind legs work. Other thing is with the wings. Right now everything's stopping right here, which is sort of dull. And you actually are leaning into it more with some of these other ones. I'm going to say go back to that. Like, look at this. Look at this fantastic silhouette on this guy. Oh, Batman would be jealous of that spiky silhouette right there. So what about yours? Boom. Now we get some beautiful big wings doing this sort of thing, right? Yeah, baby. That's cool. And then it's coming back that way. I don't know that you'd see the underside of that one very much. It'd probably go off into the background. So now he seems like extra big, right? Other things with the anatomy is generally you have that longer neck coming down. And then you have a very rotund chest. The chest cavity is where all the major organs are in there. And then this back is very small. So you have a very slimmed belly. The bellies usually get really thin right in there. And going to be looking at that being sucked up, but this chest being extra big. And it's not muscly, it's just that chest shape. Make sure that you're kind of paying attention to what the chest shape is. And it gives them this almost proud look, because it's like their chest is always just puffed out like this. You also want to be looking at some of the texturing, and maybe you just hadn't got to that, but if you hadn't thought about it, look at like the texturing on these guys. This is excellent. I don't know who did this offhand. These are both really lovely pieces. But notice the changes, right? The way that there's a scale texture sort of implied, or at least sort of a reptilian or underwater sort of texture to the way that skin is. This is basically just like red skin. What we're going to be looking for is some sort of striations, wrinkle patterns, little reflective areas, kind of like the scales on that, in order to break it out from just being red skin. Right. With that out of the way, also just wanted to touch on, okay, you were talking about the colors of the scene. Yeah, well, we're running a little bit. I'll look at just another 2 minutes here. Yeah, we need to tone the colors back a little bit because they're getting really saturated. If you want the dragon extra red, okay, we leave him more red, but let's take the blue down a notch. I just threw a vibrance adjustment layer on there, kind of toned it down. But I grabbed some of these other images just for ideas with the environment. You weren't sure to where to take it. Something on any of these lines would be really interesting and make good use of your space. Angelarium down here, just a really cool set of clouds doing that sort of thing. In the background, just going across, you have different colors, different layers of clouds with light peeking through some of them. Like back in here, like if most of your image could be this sort of thing in the background, that'd be really cool. So you get some of these pillars like you have here, but then you've got the clouds literally cutting around these pillars. Maybe you have some pillars back here too, and they're just sticking up out of the clouds. Maybe you don't even see the bottom of that pillar. It just goes around a cloud there, and you start building this dimensionality with the planes of the clouds and the spires sticking up. Or you could go with a really more blasted landscape, like this. Maybe it's not even lava, but if it had smoke, wind blowing. I did one for D&D that was that way, and just reminded me very similar. So that there's always dust and dirt and stuff flowing off of all the rock shapes, because this wind is blowing by so much. And we could have his cape coming out even further over there, and we have dirt and stuff. And then you just want to indicate it with some like, stuff blowing around in the background with different wind and things. And you can try to add to it like they did there with all the rocks are leaning that way. Like over time, the wind has just been so powerful that all the rocks have kind of bent over. This is a really interesting one as well. That could work for you. And just adding like stuff and then more layers in the background.
I'd have one more suggestion for the foreground. If you put like more like stairs or something to where the human is standing, maybe having there a plateau or something where maybe already are some gifts for the dragon, like gold
Mm-hmm.
or anything that could add a little bit more to the story and give us also more, yeah, the impression of depth, and we have foreground and all these things. Just as a little side note.
Yeah, I think you could develop the. I think you could develop the dude and maybe have a little moonlight or something kind of running on him, so that he just stands out a bit more. He's pretty small, and having a little light on him could really help pull him out. Oh, the leg. The leg is too much. I'm trying to pre-move because it's not keeping up with me. I was just kind of seeing what that looks like. Or having that sort of thing back there. Yeah. Anyway, finished up there. Hopefully you found that helpful. Next up is David. David, not sure what's up with your file, man. He's blank. So, I mean, I downloaded it and it was this way. She downloaded it and it was this way. So I'm thinking you accidentally turned off a layer. So I will judge it based on the concepts that you currently have up here. But yeah, I don't have a main image. So I'm working a little thin on the reply. So let's at least take a look at these up here. And it looks like you had an image with dragons coming out of, I don't know if it's flowing gold or lava, but that's kind of interesting with the little dude up there sort of having his staff out. And he's like, oh, is it dinner time?
Yeah, it's also my favorite one, to be honest, right away.
Yeah, it's a kind of a cool idea. I don't think that's the one that you ended up going with, but if I could see like a flowing lava with a dragon sticking his head out, or a liquid gold, molten gold dripping down, and he's like sticking his head out to see who's sort of disturbing him. That's a neat scene. Yeah. And then on these, we've got somebody coming to talk to, command, give the dragon different things. That's fine. I think the poses are maybe getting a little too orthogonal too quickly. So that's one of the things you might want to think about, that they're snapping to the angles that you're most comfortable with. Like this guy's body is facing this way, but he's stuck his head out and he's completely 3/4 that way, almost completely sideways that way. Where I would expect that he's going to be looking at this dude, not off over that way. So watch that. And again, it's like this one completely sideways, which is the same sort of thing as having someone completely straight to you, right? We talked about that on the other images. So in this one, his whole body's almost completely sideways this way, but he cranks his neck around so he's almost sideways going the other way. So we just want to maybe find something like that doesn't feel right with his neck. Like, that's kind of off. So what's he have over here? He's going with this one. If we do that, then you got to look at how the necks work. Like the neck's not going to be attaching right there. The neck is going to be attaching further back. Like the neck's going to be attaching back here. And so we've got to be thinking about how this is going to be able to turn enough. Or if you want the dragon there, then maybe we don't have its whole body on the other side to turn it that way. Or you often see that creatures with really long necks like this, or serpentine creatures, that they don't have just one curve. They have a more complex curve than that. So they might have a dip that their head is down here, and then it comes up, and then it does more of this, right? And so it's got kind of this curve into this curve into this curve. And so they work out the motion in a series of curves, not just, I'm going to make one 90-degree turn, or almost 180 degree turn. And then this can be better for us artists because it's a more interesting, shape. So something on that line, right? And then that feels like, okay, now maybe it, and then we turn its body a little bit, right? So it's not completely sideways as much. We've got the, I don't know if you have the front legs are part of the wings. No, I guess you have the other legs. Yeah, something on more on that line. So that would be my first thought is, okay, let's get that neck and then maybe we can drop it down towards him a bit more and we're making better use of some of the overall shape. Oh, nope, wrong one. There we go. And then we just played around with some different colors, apparently. This, if you're using this sort of light, which is the background has really bright, and then these guys are here, you are basically going to be treating these guys as silhouettes. So, if you're following this lighting, it's going to be really easy for them to get very dark very quickly. So think about that. What was your thoughts? You have anything else you can add to this, Anna?
Yeah, I also had the first impression that the neck looks pretty painful for the dragon to hold it in that way. The second thing is that the way you change it already helps it out a little bit, but overall the composition is like a big, huge egg shape. So the corners are all rounded, and the neck is rounded, and behind the dragon the light is rounded. It's all round, and I think something to oppose that, like having more of a spiky dungeon around the dragon, would help that a little bit, because by now it looks just odd to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. This was mine.
Yeah. The environment is certainly something that he could get more interest out of. Like, where are they? Is it just some random rock? Even if you change it up so that, there's like a rock wall right here, and then you've got a dude here, but he's literally repelled down, and he's on a rope, right? And he's wearing a harness. And then he's calling out to the dragon on the side. And then you've got this big crevasse, like they're down in some underground crevasse where you can't even see the bottom of this thing, right? And the dragon has his leg over here, and he's just kind of wedged into this big crevasse. That would be more interesting. Then you've got this kind of C, reverse C shape, kind of a D pattern going on there. But yet you've got this angled pattern like this of all the lines of the crevasse kind of going out into the distance. So you're countering the side to side with all these verticals. I mean, that is one solution of many. So it would just get what is the standard, okay, kind of sort of slopey bottom of the cave sort of thing, and taking it to a level that we don't usually get to see much. And maybe we see some jutting rocks towards the foreground here. Or maybe this is a crumpled old pillar, right? Even that, and with just some of the broken statue pieces or something, just to break up the roundness of everything. Yeah. This is a really nice piece. You got some nice piece over there for reference. No, that's about all my thoughts on this one. I think it'd be really cool. Yeah. And he could definitely go with the chained idea if he wants to continue with the chains that he's coming to feed him, talk to him, free him. I don't know. But that would still work.
Yeah, cool. Looking forward to this one.
Okay, that was just the cover. Anna Maria. She is still in the chat, I assume. Yeah. Now, Anna's probably so used to going early because her name starts with an A, but no, we went backwards this week.
No.
Okay, a couple of comments here. Says, hi, Clint. So
She's not talking like that.
she totally talks. You've never talked to her. I know her.
I talk to her.
Now, I'm gonna. Do I have to mute
On a
you?
daily basis. She's nice and not annoying voice like, hey, Clint. Nobody does that.
Hey, this is my show.
Okay, do whatever you want. Go.
Okay, well, you do it then. What's she sound like?
Hi, Clint. So I haven't really gotten to the anatomy of
No, that's just you reading it.
No.
Yes, it is.
No. Well, okay, go. Have your try, but try it a little bit more nice.
Okay, how about you do a German? You could probably do a good German.
In German, with German accent?
Yes.
Hi, Clint. So I haven't really gotten to the anatomy of character design of the girl dragon, as I think my values and colors are all over the place. Is that good?
Actually, it's pretty good. I have a German friend. That's actually really close to what she sounds like.
I wanted it to be a bit more playful color and saturation wise. I usually create darker pieces, but I guess I just don't know how to do it probably because this doesn't look great. Is it too saturated? Please help. I'm really stuck. Oh, I added the stalactites at the end, but I'm wondering if it's getting a bit too busy. Thanks.
Okay, well, it's a good piece. It is. I think this is a nice concept. You've laid down all the ideas well. And like you said, the actual design of the dragon hasn't really been set. The anatomy, the poses, the designs of the characters maybe not so set as well. But I get what's going on. And I'm liking it. I think it's a cool scene. I don't know that I don't think the stalactites are too much. I think maybe we don't need as many little ones. Maybe just maybe taking out this dude, and maybe adding a few towards the background, just a little lighter ones back there, sort of continuing it. The saturation, though, I don't have a problem with it being saturated. But if you're not wanting this, you said something about you want more of a playful color and saturation. That I had to read that to really get that idea, because this could very easily come across as a very dark image with the scenario. So, yeah, it's almost like treating it a bit more like a Hearthstone image. In my head, I kind of have to think about it that way. Like, oh, it's more like a Warcraft image where it's a little more lighthearted. It's got some color. It's got some fun shapes. It's not like this horror scene where it's really dark and grim. We probably do want to expand out some of the colors, because right now it's just this analogous color scheme. Everything is surrounded by the blue-violet range. And there's nothing wrong with that. Well, I'll just say right now that there's nothing wrong with that. And if you want to paint the scene that way, that's fine. But if you are wanting to get other colors, then yeah, we need to look at some options about how to implement it. Okay, so Anna, with you, I think you had a good impression of the scene as well. But
Yeah.
what do you think about the colors, about the cave appearance and stuff?
Yeah, this is actually also the only note that I took. Um, that I put the dragon probably because he is the enemy in a complementing color, like for example, a green, like this poisonous green or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And the characters in this warm and gentle violet fit really well
Mm-hmm.
to my opinion, in my opinion. Yeah, so maybe the dragon having more of a greenish glow, maybe the background of him also having like greenish poisonous smoke or something like that. So I'd go for green, but in general, complementary color scheme would be fitting, I think at least, or split complementary, one of
Yeah.
these two.
Okay, we can go into that here in a second. I was drawn to this image reference you had up here of this dude because this is a really good example of the direction I think you could go with the colors in that it has a distinct color range to it, but yet it's not all one color. And he's got little cyans, he's got some warm tones, he's got some of the pinks, he's got some more of the light yellows, some bluish tones. But it all works together. And that's primarily because saturation, right? You can use, there is multiple ways to make colors harmonious. You can use similar colors, you can use a key color, or you can use saturation. And there's different reasons to use each one. In this case, he's used saturation. Most of the colors are all kept at about 50% saturation, except for his kind of his discordant color, which is the cyan. The various bits of cyan are allowed to be more saturated than any of the other colors. So if you sample like the red in the mouth, half, 50%, like I said, is 50%. Look at the greenish blue, not even 50%. We look at the tongue, the pink. It's probably a little more, yeah, it has to be because it's so light, you have to go super saturated to get the color out of it. But the cyan bits are more saturated. They regularly stay up at the higher percentage. And even the cool tones down here, right around the 50%. And so keep that in mind that you can actually paint the entire scene in 50% saturation. Then that will keep you from going too crazy with it getting out of hand. And that will innately be more keyed. So like on my palette, I use this. These are the stock 100% saturated colors. And then I made another version, which is all those same colors at 50% saturation. And I do most of my painting with this set down here. But it's only when I have a particular spot that I need a punch of saturation that I go back up and I paint with these. And that way that these are keyed together easier than if I just try to freehand it. If people are not aware, I was just going to bring up the little palette selector here. Some people are new. They haven't seen this, so I was just going to mention it. I made this palette wheel selector thing, and if you want it, you can just go to swatchesart.com. It's completely free. Just go out there to download it. And it has a color wheel. And I'll pull this over here so you can see. So it has a couple of different color wheels. It has a very dark color wheel if you're doing dark images, a dark, your midtones at 100% opacity, saturation, and then a mid at the 50% saturation, which give you that same swatch pattern, then a light as well. So let's say that we have just our midtones. And then you have up here a series of masks. It is just a gray shape with a hole cut out of it. So if I'm on that, so you can just see it's just a gray shape with a hole cut out. But I can do Command T to transform, and then I can rotate this. And it's always going to rotate from the middle, so it just rotates right there. And that is a monochromatic. That is, you're just painting with one color. And then complementary, it'd be like this. You're like, oh, well, what sort of complementary color scheme do I want? Well, there's your options right there. You just go right around, and then you can say, I like this right here. Okay, cool. And then you can just get your, oh, you can not hit the wrong button. Oh, I set that down. That's what it was. Then I could just select. Usually have that set to contiguous. And then I could just be like, okay, well, that's my palette. I'm now going to be selecting colors out of my complementary color scheme right there. Then there's all the others, right? You have your split complementary, and I'm feeling with Honest Piece, this might be a good option because it gives you the kind of dichotomy that she had mentioned with having two different colors, but they're not direct opposites on the color wheel. So it makes it feel a little more balanced. In this case, you're going kind of to the cool side. So you could be running with a color scheme sort of like this. And then you could just grab these colors and set these over here. I mean, like, okay, well, that's fine for that. Then I need a 50% saturated version. So I'm going to just grab that and set those over there. And then you can just sample off of these. And this then becomes your new palette to paint from. Right? And you can do that for your darks and your lights and stuff as well. For this scene to keep from feeling too dark, too gloom, one of the ideas is give the characters an exit. Give the sense that the characters could go somewhere. This sort of feels like an exit, like maybe they're trying to get out there. But another thing that you can do is introduce another light source. Not with that brush. So if there was another light source, particularly a warm light source, because warm is more reassuring, then you could have some bounce light over here. Not bounce light, just light from the light source over here. On this side. And this sort of splits them away from the color of the dragon. And it makes it feel like maybe there is an exit that direction, but they can't take off to get to that because the dragon's looking at them. And so that would give you an option too, and that would allow you to expand your color palette out a bit more. Another thing that you could do is, and we've all been here, I've certainly been here before, and that is, you like your general scene, but the way that you've blocked it in, you weren't really thinking about colors, and now it's basically this monochromatic scene, and you want to get more colors out of it. And sometimes it's hard to just start adding more colors in. So something that you can do is, okay, we go back to your lines, and then you just paint things in with their base color. Just their base color. Don't add lighting, don't add shading. It's just whatever the base color is, like whatever that skin tone is, whatever this rock is. And it would be like doing this. You could get, I'm going to do something real simple here. It'll just take a minute, but I'm thinking about doing a whole video on it because it's a really simple approach.
You must, Clint. You must.
I must.
Yes. This sounds very interesting.
You can't debate things that you must do, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got homework for the weekend.
Was it Sarek, the father of Spock, who said, "That which is necessary is never unwise." So if it's necessary, oh, happy heads. Oh, I'm a happy head too. Okay. So we have two little faces, and then I just have those on one layer here. Yep, Cool. Did I put the faces on it? Nope. Which layer is my face on? This one. Okay. Then I'm going to make a layer over top. My faces are on the blue layer. On the green layer. Make a layer up here. I'll set that to clipping mask. Just set that to multiply. Multiply. And then I can pick whatever color I want as my shadow. Right? There's some really nice Pinterest tutorials out there on this too. But I thought it might be nice to cover it in a video. So I can say, well, I'm thinking about having a cool light. Okay, well, I just paint this in with multiply. And it has a cool light. And that way you can start with whatever base color that you want, and you can adjust all of the shadows to be whatever color you want. And it's independent from you having to repaint it. So depending on how dark or how light you want things, say that I want it to be like a warm light, so it's going to have more of a cooler shadow. It's going to be somewhere in there. I don't want it quite that dark, but I want it nice and saturated. Yeah, okay, cool. Then what I can do is make another one in the clip chain, and I'm going to set him maybe at overlay. And he could be my bounce light, and he's going to be cool as well. And so I can have a little bounce light on this side of him. Maybe it's underneath, so it's like catching under his little features. And then you can change that one and say, oh, I want it brighter. I want it this color. I want it that color. And when you separate out the elements of the light and the shadow, then you can change all of these things independent from each other. And that would allow you to have the base version of the scene, and then put any light that you want on it, and it's going to come out the correct color. Because you're literally building the scene up the same way that reality works, which is everything has a base color, then all shadows have a certain tone, all light has a certain tone, and then you can add light layers. You could add another layer to your clipping chain. And you could be overlay. Overlay can go light or dark. This is another thing to go over in the video. All of these darken things, all of these lighten things, all of these can lighten and darken things at the same time. And these are weird, and you don't ever use those. And these you use sometimes because they have to do with saturation. But you could do another overlay layer and do like a light, right? If you want to add a brighter light to it. Like, oh, there's my highlights. Now I got a cool face. Yeah. So yeah, that's the sort of impression, and that way you can try out multiple color schemes, because all you're doing is like changing the color of all the shadows, and it will change it universally across the whole image. And you could try one light here and one light there, and you could add this light in as one layer, and you could turn it on and off to see if you like it or not. No. But I would suggest probably going around and messing with something like this little palette chooser to figure out what, do you want triadic, do you want rectangle, do you want square, do you want discordant? You could have discordant where it's like all basically this analogous, but there's this one kind of standout color. Yeah. Anna.
Yeah, I was about to ask you, do you still have time for two more, or shall we skip mine and do just the last one? It depends on your plans for today, Clint.
No, I'm fine.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. I don't have to be there for a bit, so we can definitely wrap up. Okay, so for those who haven't connected it, Anna, who I'm talking to right now, this is her image. So yeah, you're a little thin on the comment section on your image.
Because I'm here.
Yes. So talk me through what you would normally write in your comments.
So I had different sketches, sketch ideas to let everyone know. I showed them already to Clint, and we decided on one. That's why the compositions I did on top are so close to each other, because we already decided to go for this one. Um, and I just changed the pose of her. I was about to change also the background, but failed at it, so I left it as it was, and I just changed the poses. So I'd like to hear Clint's opinion on the different poses, which one he thinks is the most dynamic and most fitting for the theme. For the value studies, I had one with light rays. I know Clint hates light rays. He's gonna talk me out of that. I love light rays, as far as to put it. I have a problem with making her stand out because I want her to be bright, but then I would have to make the background dark, but it wouldn't make sense with the to see the clouds or the sky, and having then suddenly light on her that's usually coming from the sky, but the sky is dark. So I wanted to ask you about that too. And for the colors, yeah, I totally need help on how to go about the colors for this one. Yeah, that's basically it. Are you still there?
Yes, I'm looking at them.
No, I just thought maybe my Skype died or something.
Yeah, no, it's all you. Take it away.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, this is one of those, also kind of back to, is not a big necessity to reinvent the wheel, and with her pose. This pose is pretty understandable as she's emerging from the tree. So I think that's fine. I mean, any one of these really works. Like this one, I almost feel as being, what did it say, a little on the nose. It's almost like a little too much. Like, okay, yeah, she's waking up. Although I do like a little bit more of the twist in the body here. I think this is too much, but can we get a little bit of that twist in this? Like she's pulling one leg free, so she's, her hips are kind of turned so that it's like stepping out of mud, right? You turn one side of your body to get that leg out, and then you turn to pull that other leg out. Right now, she's just hips and shoulders are both level. I'm almost thinking like if it was a bit more like that, maybe just. I would have to get in the mirror. I would take a webcam photo and kind of just get a little twist to the body.
Yeah. With having the legs more turned away from us, I was afraid that it would look weird because she's then kind of stepping sideways out of the tree. But she is, from our point of view, in the middle of the tree. That's why I wanted her hips to be little bit more aligned with the tree. And I tried this also out with her having a little bit more twist to it, but I couldn't find a good way to.
Yeah, and that's a minor thing with the pose. As it is, it's one that when you light it and you color it, it's going to carry the narrative of what's going on with this. I guess my next question is, again, it's not clear. Human? What is she made of?
She will be made out of greenish skin, and she will be a little bit blossoming, I guess. But I didn't figure it out yet. It depends on my skills, what I will be able to pull off.
I'm actually reminded of what was her name in Maui, that she was the island.
Te Fiti.
Te Fiti. And she had like the grass hair that came down. Um, I'm just thinking that we need to have a very clear distinction between her and the wintry scene. And we can do that certainly with the light, and I think this all checks out with the just the one light, kind of shining down on her. But also, just like all of her hair is just flowers. Like you don't even see hair. It's just a chain of beautiful flowers. And maybe the flowers change color as they get back towards the wintry parts. And then of course she has green like tones, but also thinking like anywhere that she's touching, like this is beginning to bud, and there's little leaves and flowers coming out. That she is in herself spring. This is like the entity of spring. So lots of color, almost like she's got a laurel of flowers in her hair, like some of the classic paintings going around there. That could be really beautiful. These are all just ideas. I'm not sure if that's the direction you're going with it. The background, the background, you've kind of got a couple of things going on, and you have some references that are like really light, like the one on the bottom right, where the background is actually quite bright. But then in a lot of your scenes, you've got a really dark light going on. You probably don't have to go real dark. I think it's going to be a matter of the background is going to be more desaturated. So like, even if you start using like the blue in the background of this underwater dancing lady, I don't know what that is. I feel like it being a nighttime scene wouldn't really work, even if it was just overcast. And so it's kind of that slate gray, kind of dreary, wintry scene.
Do you mean like in the third value study with a little bit more blurry and ghosty?
Yeah, I think something like that would work. It wouldn't feel like, oh, it's this oppressive darkness. It's just, hey, it's a kind of a shady winter scene. But yeah, and then you've got all that green starting to grow out and being really. I think that's probably your best option. That third one is looking really good. I'm not gonna give you a hard time if you want to put in some light rays. Just do it well. Don't just get the hazy brush and get white and spray it over it. That's what most people do, and that just dulls everything down. So we want to make sure that we actually start using some color if we're going to do that, and then we have to have a nice bright light hitting on her. So like down here on this one, if this was I'm gonna just say linear dodge is like such a good thing for mimicking actual light.
Also must be cautious.
Yeah, but usually don't need like 100%. So set it down. Yeah, so at least on part of her, to really snap up how bright some of the light is, then just let it drift off, like just across her chest, face, kind of right there. And then you can even do that sort of, there's so much light, there's a glow. And we could even have, just to add a little bit to the scene, like we either need to do something with the clouds that kind of give some interest with the clouds, or we can have snowflakes sort of, coming around, because obviously there's snow everywhere. That would be an option as well. I'd be curious, like if you wanted to go with the magic sort of thing, You could do like that. There's some magic sort of glowing out of in between some of the big twists in the tree. Like this green light is sort of filtering up the tree to her between some of the.
That sounds good. Yeah.
And just visually, that sort of thing can come off really, really well. It just, I don't know why it is, but we humans like things that glow like that.
Yeah, this is also what I think often when I see paintings with that. So, oh, it's nice glow.
Yeah, I'm always looking for a place where can I make something glow.
Yeah.
I love making glowy things. And so, I mean, that could even be an option as well. Is like, is it literally glowing behind her as she's stepping out of it? Now, is there a light sort of emitting from this tree so that the tree itself, parts of it, kind of become its own light source as it does this sort of thing?
Would it be boring if she glowed herself?
Boring, no. Tricky though, because it's like what part of her is glowing, and then it's hard to make her look like she's vegetation if she's also glowing.
Yeah.
So you might be able to pull it off, like her hair is glowing or her face is. Probably not her whole body, but if you think you can pull it off, give it a try and see. And you might find a way that you can make it work really well. Just offhand, I'm not sure exactly how to resolve that without having done that particular thing before. Yeah, the sky, I really think that we need to make some use of the sky because it's a fairly large bit of the scene and it's not really doing anything.
Yeah, that's why I put the clouds a little bit pointing on her to have it a little bit more used, but I also had no good idea. I didn't want it to get too busy with like birds and stuff like that, so but I'm totally up for your ideas.
I wondered if you could just indicate like some mountains or something kind of back there so that you have something for the clouds to actually interact with. And so between some of the clouds, you can see like this mountain sort of peeking out. And so it expands the scene out and there's something back there. Or this could also be a scene where it is artistically perfect. Like the clouds are forming right there behind her. Right? And they're making this beautiful big pillar. And they've got this glowing light from inside of the clouds. Like the sun is coming up right behind her. Oh, that could be an interesting idea. Like, yeah, have the sun actually coming up right behind her. And she's almost being... you could have her glowing, but she's also being silhouetted. So she's dark enough from the silhouette of the sun that you could actually brighten her up again. And I look for like light, sunrise light coming through clouds, and you could have that sort of radiating behind her. Just some directions that you could take with it.
So a little bit like in the last value and color study, so with more of a sunrise kind of feel.
Okay, let's modify it
I didn't put the sun directly behind her because I wanted the sun to partly lit her face, but yeah, still having the sunrise situation.
If you have her having some of her own illumination, we don't need a light on her face. We could have the sunlight coming around here. Oh, it's starting to give me some lag. Like this, and then these outer parts of the trees are going to be getting more silhouetted. Ooh, I can't hardly move my mouse. Oh, yeah. Okay. Um, so, yeah, if it was me, this might actually be the direction that I would go. Um, and I would just get this really cool sort of radiant light sort of coming around her. And then she can have her own light sort of coming off of her as she's glowing. Like,
And you don't think it's cheesy?
is it real? No, but I think it could be a beautiful image.
Okay.
It's one of those things where if you commit to it and being like, this isn't about making a technically perfect and in that accurate image. This is about just as beautiful as I can make it, and having these sorts of billowing big lit clouds behind her as you then have the secondary lights coming up the tree to her as the life begins coming up this way, and then you have the beautiful flower colors beginning to bud along here, and you're getting the backlight of the sun through some of the flower petals, and they're just, hot pink and white, and yeah, that I think that could just be really, really nice. And then you wouldn't even have to get dark down here. All of these sort of soft violet and blue tones, you're just going to be hitting most of this stuff down here with those colors. Yeah. And this is all just your cool colors, kind of like what you already have it there. Something like that. You might want to put in a foreground element, though. That did catch me off a little bit.
Yeah, I have, as you see in the value studies, these are older sketches to be honest. I went on with the sketch later. That's why they are not completely the same as the main sketch. And I had like this little twigs as foreground.
Yeah.
But I was not too happy because it was making it even more busy, and it was already so busy. That's why I wanted also to ask you what I could do with the foreground.
I think it's mainly this corner, because we have a lot of motion going this way in the scene, from the right to left. And you're just having like a log, even just a simple log kind of laying across.
Ooh, I just trained that.
What's that?
I just trained that one. I exercised it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right. In the materials. Yeah, just doing that, and then you don't even have to do that much texture on it, because most of this is probably no, most of this one's gonna be in snow. You're just gonna have a snow kind of piled up on there, and maybe you have a rock or something just offsetting it, because if we put that there, then we need another angle on the other side of something that's just about half that size, and the roots are sort of going up over that rock, and that would balance the scene out for me as a viewer a lot better. Okay, well, I'm sure you will have plenty to work on with that.
Yes, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll probably not be able to hand in the fully finished piece in 2 weeks because of the materials course, but I plan to keep this one really, really slowly and take much time for each step. And
yeah, develop it at the speed that you can, and that goes for everybody. Don't sacrifice the quality for speed. We are definitely trying to get it done within the deadline, but if you're not able to keep up with that, or certainly if things in life are not allowing you to keep up with that, then just do what you can well with the time that you have, and then finish it up later. And then it's better to do that than have to go back and try to rework a bunch of stuff because you just sped through. All right, this one is by Andy. He says, I'm leaning towards doing an Indiana Jones light-hearted scene when the character is stealing treasure. However, I struggled to the character in the struggle to put maybe the character into the scene while making his facial expression readable and visible. So this one struck me as a composition issue.
Yep.
Because you're just having difficulty arranging things in the scene so that you can have everything that you need as big as you need it. And right now we have to say what is the important elements in the scene. What do we have to see in order to get the gist of what's going on? We need so much delay. So much delay. That is essentially our scene. Just enough temple to know temple, dragon, dude about to grab something. So all of this other stuff, not really relevant. So can we use the elements that we have in a different arrangement? So I'm going to be looking at some of these. Like, look what they did. Look how close they set a lot of this stuff to the camera. See, we have the statue right here to the foreground. Can't even see the close side of it. We've got the gold piece. We have Indiana Jones. We have just enough of the background to say, okay, some sort of temple. That's what we need here. We can have Indiana Jones, your dude, much closer. We can also look at offsetting them. So if this up here is our arrangements, then we can do what they did. We can have the guy. Oh, I don't know why it is going so slowly now. Like stealing the same arrangement, we want to start putting some things in 3/4 or side view. So we have him. Oh, I'm going to take it. And then you have the dragon up there. Right? And that way you have one subject here, one subject there. Instead of trying to do it this way, which you're piling them all in the middle, you're having the statue thing and the dude and the dragon, and you're all trying to put them right here, and you're not utilizing all the space on either side. And there's different ways that you can do that, right? I mean, you could just reverse it too. I mean, you could just easily put like the dragon's looking down from this side, and you've got the dude over here. We don't need to see the bottom half of this guy. We don't need to see any of this. We don't really need to see any of that. If we can fit some of that stuff in, that's great. We can also use like a really low kind of camera angle where you've got that and you're looking up at this guy and this object is like here. Oh, this is so slow. I'm sorry, guys. Cannot draw this normally. So we're looking at it like this, and then we basically have this dragon there in the background as we're looking up at this scene. I don't know if that you can even make that out. But it's a super low camera angle where we have him essentially on one side as we're looking up at him. And then we have the dragon coming down on this side. And the whole thing is following this sort of perspective as we're looking up. And then we have like the pedestal with the item on it there. I'm going to suggest really looking at some other images and seeing how they arrange things. Just go out to ArtStation and look for magic cards even that often have somebody having interact with stuff. And check out the compositions of how they fit things in frame. Look at movies. Movies is another great way. They have to fit things in this ratio. That 1920 by 1080 sort of ratio is what they have to do for every frame. And that's very similar to what you have right here. Okay, I'm going to stop there for a moment. What was your thoughts on this one, Anna?
Yeah, but we also always say keep pushing with those concepts you handed in and you got tips on. So I thought about some things we could change the one he did and make it a different composition that could probably work, at least to my my skill level, as far
Mm-hmm.
as I can say. I shrink down a little bit the head of the creature and give it a body like these, what he also referenced a bit, really long snake-like Chinese dragons, and make it go in a loop, first to the right, then to the left, and over the whole painting the rest, so that we make use of the horizontal crop of the whole painting. So we fill it with the body to make people understand how huge this creature is. Maybe one hand that is on the right of the painting that is trying to grab or going towards the person in front, and deleting the pillars and stuff and make it more look like a dungeon. Because what I thought is problematic, he writes that this man is stealing some treasure from the dragon, but the surroundings look like they were made by a human. So it looks like the dragon is coming
Mm-hmm.
into a temple or something from a human, and so make it look like a dungeon more. Yeah, take out the pillars and these man-made, I don't know, cannons, or I don't know what it is on the left, what he planned to make these out of, I don't know. And yeah, make this more a place where this dragon would live. That's why he also needs a little bit space that we can see a little bit more of the surroundings. And having this object that he tries to steal makes it on a rock or something, and not something that looks like there's a table or so. And also, what I also thought, when you look at the reference, I understand why he did this decision with having both hands going after the object. But under one reference, the Indiana Jones is trying to replace it with something that is the same weight.
Mm-hmm.
That's why he needs both hands. And the one from the style direction, he's more like, haha, show, look, guys, what I have
Mm-hmm.
here. So he's not trying to grab it. And if you're trying to grab it, maybe one hand being the dominant one, while the other is maybe holding a torch or
Mm.
anything like that would be better. Because my first read was he's summoning the dragon
Mm.
in behind. Because this is typical for magicians and summoning something on an object. So I changed that to. These are just some suggestions. I don't know whether I could make them quite clear, and if you know what I mean, but this is how I would change uh, this composition to make it
Oh, those
somehow.
are excellent thoughts. I had not considered at all that it could be more of a Chinese dragon. Yeah, looping that long, snaky kind of body would be a great way to fill the whole image and be able to create a lot of soft motion. And yeah, it doesn't feel like a dragon's lair. And usually, kind of a telltale is piles of gold coins. It's a trope, but it's a recognized trope that you could use to your advantage. So I would consider adding in something like that. I do particularly like that idea of one hand is holding something, a torch, a sword, a map, anything along those lines would be a really good small addition to the image. And yeah, the general dragon look I think is working pretty well. It's probably a little too much dog-ish right now.
Dog. I saw a Taurus, or what they are called, these male cows.
Oh
This is
yeah,
what I saw.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it's not reptilian enough. So
Yeah.
I'm going to suggest if you want to do the Chinese dragons, that's cool, but make sure that you're looking at some good references. I've drawn some of those sort of dragons before, and they do have a different set of anatomy. And one of the things that is kind of a telltale of that sort of design is hair. They're a sort of dragon that has lots of hair. They have these beards. They have these hairs that come out from the back of the jaw. They create a sort of mane, and they have the long whisker bits that come off. Yeah, so consider that and adding that in, and make sure that because this is a magical creature, things don't just droop down like this. They like this, and like Shinron, right, from Dragon Ball Z. The whisker things are constantly floating around. Yeah. He didn't really develop the character enough to really do any comments on the character design or expression or anything. But just make sure, Andy, that you're getting reference photos for the entire pose and for the facial expression, and also for the lighting on the character if that's possible. Yeah, good stuff here. It's a cool scene. This one would be quite different. It's a kind of a Tomb Raider who is in some sort of Chinese setting with like a Chinese sort of dragon. Very cool. I'd like to see what he's going to do with it. All right, well, we are right at 2.5 hours, so it is about time to wrap it up here.
Yep.
And guys, if you have not already joined us out on the Facebook group, just go to swatches.group. It will link you to the correct group. Make sure that you answer the question of why you want to join. We do have some spam bots that try to join, so we put that question in there. So put something in there to let us know you're a human, and we'll let you right in. And then join me Monday morning, 10 a.m. Central Standard Time over on the Twitch channel, twitch.tv/swatchesart. And then we'll be back here next Friday for probably a portfolio review that's still up in the air. I'll still think about that. Maybe I'll do something different. But you can catch I and Anna out on the Facebook group most days if you have comments or questions. So, any parting words from your side, Anna?
No, thank you really much. It was very interesting stream. Thank you all for submitting your sketches. I know it's hard to do it in time, but I'm really glad most people were able to do it. They're really nice concepts. I had a lot of fun reviewing these. I hope we helped you, and I'm really looking forward to the finished ones.
Me too. Remember, you can put your stuff out on the group to get some feedback from the rest of the community in between now and next week when you put the finals up. So don't feel like you're still all on your own during the week. All right, that's it for now. Thank you so much for joining us, and we hope you have a great and safe week, and we will catch you back here next time. Until then, keep drawing.